At some point in your life, you will find yourself in debt. How do you deal with it? And how do you deal with it if it becomes unmanageable? In today's video, we're going to be looking at a number of methods to deal with unmanageable debt. We're also going to be looking at where we can go for advice, further advice on the issue. Within this video, we're going to look at why people experience debt. We're also going to look at 5 methods to get out of unmanageable debt. We're going to look at the benefits of switching providers or products, and we're also going to look at where we can go for further information. So why do people experience debt? It could be that they've borrowed on credit cards and the debt becomes unmanageable. We could experience illness, which means that we may not be able to work. We may experience a drop in our pay or our hours. We may experience unemployment. That essentially means that we are out of work and therefore rely on state benefits. We also may experience other unexpected expenditure, emergencies, or alternatively car breaking down, things like that. So what solutions are there for dealing with unmanageable debt? So your debt has become so large that you potentially don't see a way out and you don't see a way to deal with it. Well, if someone's debts are greater than their assets and they can't repay what they owe, they are classed as insolvent. And there are 5 ways to deal with that issue. The first is a debt management plan. If an individual has many debts, they may set up a debt management plan with a debt management company, DMC for short. The individual will pay the debt management company what they can afford each month. Then the DMC will divide this between the organisations that are owed money. A second method of dealing with unmanageable debt is an administration order, AO for short. An administration order is a formal and legally binding agreement between you and your creditors to pay back your debts over a period of time. Now, to be eligible for an AO, you must have debts that are no more than £5,000 in total, so quite a small amount relatively. You must have an unpaid county court judgment or high court judgment against your name, and you must have 2 or more debts. If you don't have a county court judgment or high court judgment, you need to wait for one of your creditors to take court action against you. As soon as the judgment is entered, you can apply for an administration order. As you can see, in order to get an administration order, there are several criteria you must meet to be eligible, and therefore not everyone in unmanageable debt can apply for one of these administration orders. A third method of dealing with unmanageable debt is individual voluntary arrangements. It's where the debtor makes affordable repayments for 5 or 6 years and then the debt is completely written off. If the debtor cannot keep up payments, however, they can be made bankrupt. They are legally binding arrangements between the debtor and creditors and must be agreed, however, by the creditor. The reason why many creditors agree to individual voluntary arrangements is that they see the potential for at least some of their debt to be paid off. However, this of course is not always the case, as not all creditors agree to their debts being written off after 5 or 6 years. Debt relief orders can be applied for if the debtor cannot pay off debts within 12 months. To be eligible for a debt relief order, the individual must not be a homeowner, they must owe less than £30,000, they must have no more than £1,000 in assets, and they must have less than £50 a month after paying their living expenses. So once again, a significant number of criteria to be eligible for a debt relief order. A debt relief order costs £90, and all debts are frozen for 12 months. That will give the individual an opportunity to find or get better employment in 12 months. If the debtor cannot resume payments after 12 months, then the debt is written off. And the final method of dealing with unmanageable debt is bankruptcy. And once again, this occurs when debt is greater than assets. Debtors do not deal directly with the creditors, and the debtor, the person who owes the money, all of their affairs are taken over by the courts. The debtor's assets, their business, house, car and savings, are taken by the courts and they're used and split between the creditors in the correct proportion as a percentage. It costs £700 to begin bankruptcy proceedings, and the debtor cannot apply for credit during the 12 months, and the debtor can only use basic current accounts, so they will not have access to an overdraft facility, for example. The debt is written off after 12 months, but the bankruptcy record lasts on an individual's record for 6 years. Bankruptcy issues, however, are far-reaching. Not only will it last on your record for 6 years, which essentially means that you're unable to borrow any money really for 6 years, it will also mean that you are barred from practicing in certain professions, financial advisor, for example. Now, before you get into unmanageable debt, there may be benefits of switching providers or products. If you've got significant amounts of credit card debt, for example, you may wish to switch providers of credit cards. They may offer a very reduced interest rate, for example, compared to your original provider. That will give you more of an opportunity to get out of debt. They may also offer interest-free periods, maybe a year, maybe even 2 years. That means that if you transfer your balance to another provider, you have that grace period of a year or two in order to start paying down your balance so that at the end of the grace period, your balance is significantly lower, so you get less interest charged. Many people have found that transferring their balance year on year means that they can avoid ever getting charged interest on their balance. Of course, many providers will charge for a balance transfer. It might be 1 or 2% of the balance outstanding. So how do we get advice? Well, we could go to Citizens Advice if we're in debt. The advice is free, which means that we don't have to pay out any more to receive that advice, and the advice is impartial. That means that we're not going to be swayed to go for one solution or another. It's easily accessed. Citizens' advice can be accessed face-to-face via the telephone, and they can also be accessed online. And they offer many, many different types of advice. Now, they're not specialists in financial advice. They offer advice on all manner of things. But financially, they can advise you on how to sort out your debt. They can advise you on how to dispute credit card interest, and they can also offer advice on budgeting. If they are unable to provide the specific advice that you need, they can also put you in touch with other advisory services who could offer more specialist advice. Now, 3 multiple choice questions to assess your understanding of this topic. Firstly, which of the following is an example of someone living beyond their means? They A. Earn more than they spend, B. Have a surplus budget, C. Have problems with HMRC, or D. Spend more than they earn. The answer to question 1 is D. Spending more than they earn would give a deficit in their budget. Question number 2. An administration order in England, Wales or Northern Ireland applies to people who have less than which of the following amounts in unsecured debt? Is it A. £5,000, B. £15,000, C. £65,000, or D. £85,000? The answer to question 2 is A. The maximum amount of debt that can be subject to an administration order is £5,000. And question 3. A debt relief order enables a person to write off their debts if they are unable to repay them after what maximum length of time? Is it A. 6 months, B. 12 months, 2 years, or D. 5 years? The answer to question 3 is B. Debts can be written off after a period of 12 months with a debt relief order. In order to be successful in your Part A and Part B LIBF exams, make sure you subscribe to this channel. I release full case study evaluations and model answers.